What is up, everybody? We are back with another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and today we're looking ahead to the PFL Europe 3 card coming up from Paris, France on September 30th, and I'll tell you what, this card is absolutely stacked from top to bottom. If you watch my top 5 fights for September, I kind of cheated a little bit and I put this kind of whole card as one of my top 5 fights. I am just fascinated by this card. I'm fascinated by how stacked it is. I'm fascinated by a lot of the fights, but I'm also fascinated by like how you almost up this because we have a Bellator card in Dublin this weekend, but we have another Dublin card coming up towards the end of the year, and it's the PFL finale. This is the PFL playoffs, and it's a great time for Irish MMA, to be honest, and it's a great time for people watching MMA in Ireland, because we're going to have some good stuff coming up here this weekend, but in December as well. If this card is anything to go by, and like the level of talent, and maybe people in the States would look at this card and go, maybe I don't know all of them. Maybe I've heard of a few people. I've heard, the UFC are going to sign Cedric Doumbe, and, maybe you've heard of one or two of the fighters. I'll tell you what, though, the level of talent on this in terms of up-and-coming prospects is massive. It is massive. It might be one of the biggest cards ever in terms of that. Like, there's been some great cards down through the years with European talent on it. The Cage Warriors do it regularly, let's be honest. Bellator have done it recently. Bama even back in the day somewhat. But this one stands up near any of them, to be honest. This is a really, really, really good card. Like, just quickly going through it, like the top 2, right? Outside the tournaments, with Cedric Doumbe, who people know a lot about. I'll get into that fight in a minute. The Lazy King is in this. One of the top prospects, Simeon Powell, Dakota Ditcheva, another one of the top prospects in the world. Frans Mlambo. I don't know if you call him a prospect now. He's been around a long time. He was the tournament champion over in Combatches. He's won titles in Europe. He was in Bellator. He probably never should have been let go by Bellator. His opponent, Nuzzi, very good. Tuke, again, a guy who has had his ups and downs, but his performance last time out. John Mitchell looks a really good prospect out of Ireland. Ali Taleb. I'll tell you what, Ali Taleb, let me talk about him in a minute, but this guy is legit as they come. Chanel Dyer as well. Valentina Scatizzi, the people in SPG tell me she's very, very good. And those are all like sometimes you can pick out maybe 2 or 3 prospects. Everyone I named there, I genuinely believe they could become a contender to championship level. Like, they're that level of prospect. Obviously, all of them won't become that, but I wouldn't be shocked if any singular 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them did become that in the future. That's how good this card is. It's really, really, really good. And there's a couple of names there I haven't even mentioned yet, so I'll get to in a second. Honestly, and now I'd come on here, and usually I'm pretty positive about the cards, and especially we're going watching them, like, we'll have a bit of enjoyment there. But I'll be honest with you as well, like, I will be honest with you, if it's not a good card, or if it's, if there's 1 or 2 good fights, I'll pick out the 1 or 2 good fights and concentrate on them, whatever it might be. But this one is a real barn burner of a card. A real, like, I'm going to watch this card, I'm going to watch it closely, because in 5 years' time, you can kind of say, well, I watched him when he was 5 fights, 10 fights, 7 fights into his career or her career. That, to me, that is really one of these cards, and it's fantastic. And let's get into it, because there's a lot to talk about here, and the next half an hour should be jam-packed with information and chat and all the rest of it. So let's go from the top to the bottom. Cedric Doumbe against Jordan Zebo. Look, I remember talking to recently, and a lot of people know a lot about Cedric Doumbe, involved in the kickboxing and all, as you've heard me talking about before. I'm not the biggest. I like kickboxing, right? But I'm not following it all the time, and I don't know Cedric Doumbe a lot. But I went and watched him, and by God, am I excited about watching him fight. He's a ferocious beast of a man, of a fighter. I watched his fight with Powell, Klimas, and that happened in March of this year. Now, look, if you're to analyse Cedric Doumbe straight down the middle, and be a bit harsh about it, you would say, well, he's not exactly the finished article. You know, he got taken down a couple of times in that fight, and he kind of used his athleticism and his strength and his speed to kind of get out of those sort of things, which is not maybe the best thing to do. You should be using your technique and all of that. Now that will come. You know, he's only been a pro since 2021 after coming from the kickboxing world, but he is such a ferocious athlete. He's such a good technical puncher, power puncher. How would you like wild puncher that it'll get him through almost everything, and not just get him through almost everything. It'll probably get him past almost everyone at this sort of level. He is brilliant. Like, he is so good. His opponent, Jordan Zebo, do you know what? He's pretty good too. Watching a couple of his fights, he's a wild striker, throws big shots. Sometimes, you go and watch Doumbe and you think, okay, he is the kickboxer. Let's look for someone who has a few takedowns, a bit of wrestling. I wouldn't say Zebo has loads of wrestling, but if you go and look at him up on YouTube, as I'm sure everyone who's preparing for this card did, one of the first things you will see is a highlight of him picking a guy up and slamming him down onto the canvas. So he can do it, right? And watching a couple of his fights, when he gets caught a lot of time and taken down, it is in transitions, as you know, a lot of the time it is in mixed martial arts. But when he is able to take a guy down, or when he is able to get into that position, it's also kind of from the transitions. So if you're Zebo here, right, I'm sure he's going to go out and strike with Doumbe. As smart as that may be, we'll find out. But I think it would be wise of him as well to throw in a few takedowns. You know, he's fighting out of the MMA Factory, and, you know, the MMA Factory is a good gym, but it's not exactly known for its wrestling. Look at, you know, Cedric Doumbe and others as well. But if he can throw in a bit of that, if he can make it a tougher fight for Doumbe, that would be a wise thing to do. I think he could have a bit of success going out there striking with Doumbe, but what really is success against him? Like, success is staying on the feet for 2 3 minutes before you get knocked out, right? That's all well and good if you're setting up something else, if you're setting up a knockdown. Takedown. Now, could Zebo catch him and knock him out? I actually think he could, right? Because he is a real power striker and a real good fighter. But it's very unlikely against someone as talented as Doumbe. You need to mix things up. You need to add in different things. You need to not make it a kickboxing fight. Again, though, he has only been a pro since 2022, shorter than Doumbe. So it's not exactly as if Doumbe has been put in here against, a decorated mixed martial artist with a long career or anything. And he shouldn't be. He's only 4 fights into his career. I think this is very, very good matchmaking. And you know what? I think Doumbe is going to win, but I think it's going to be an absolute barn burner of a scrap for maybe about 2 minutes. And someone's getting knocked out. Probably Zebo, I would say, if you're being honest. I wonder if he's related to the Irish rugby player Simon Zebo. I know Simon Zebo has a bit of French in him. Maybe Zebo's a very maybe it's a very popular name over in France, but we'll see on that one. Right, let's move on. Let's talk about the co-main event. The Lazy King, Abdouraguimov, is fighting Quemuel Ottoni, and again, it's one of those fights where you go and you watch. We'll call him the opponent in Ottoni, and that's maybe a little bit unfair. But I watched him and I'm like, this guy is a good fighter. Again, you look him up on YouTube, the first thing you see is him fighting and beating Alex Pereira, the past UFC middleweight champion. Now, that was 2015, but he did beat him. I watched a couple of his fights. Now, he's unbeaten in these last 5 with 4 finishes in that time, 3 knockouts and 1 submission last time out against Jose Diaz in 2022. You know, hasn't been massively active. He fought 4 times in 2021, once in 2022, hasn't fought in 2023, didn't fight in 2020. It was, 2019 since he fought before that. So apart from, that he actually fought twice on a weekend in 2021 as well. It's not been the most active, but still, I don't think it should be much of an issue. And him as a fighter, he is an absolute iron shin. He hits hard. He's wild. He throws these big uppercuts. He will go for it. He can wrestle. I think he's 3 submission wins as well. He is a very good fighter and a very effective fighter and a very fun fighter. But the Lazy King is a different level of fighter, in my opinion. He's only lost is to Jalal Shawawi via retirement back in 2019. He's beaten some very good guys, and he beat him before that. He's beaten Karl Lamassu, beaten Carl Booth, Louis Gleisman. A lot, he's 16-1? 16-1-1. 1 no contest, sorry. 11 submissions, 2 knockouts. But I think, look, when you watch him, a lot of highlights have gone on the internet about him. Capoza getting behind him and all. And when that happens, he's become a fan favorite. 28 years of age, so still young enough in the welterweight division. I think, going and looking at him again, I've watched him in a few months now, maybe a year even, and going watching a couple of his fights again. And even one highlight popped up when I was looking him up. And it was kind of just a training video. And one thing I think it's underrated by him? He's a freak athlete. Like the way he move, you watch it in training, you see people move like that all the time. Like, oh yeah, they move well. But then to actually bring that into the fight, and you're like, when you watch him in the fight, if you just watch him and look at his athletic level, it is so high. Like the way he moves when he's striking, transitioning, and on the ground, and taking someone down, the in-between bits, and on the ground. He's a freak athlete. An absolute freak athlete. He's also one of those guys that, you're watching fights sometimes and you're thinking, okay, move to this position, do that move. He does it before you even think it. He's such a good fighter. I talk about the MMA Factory sometimes, not having all the best wrestling. He comes out of the MMA Factory, and I tell you what, he is damn good wrestling. Really, really, really good. He times it so well. He pops underneath for shots. He once he gets it there as well, he's very dominant on top. But he can strike. I was kind of amazed to see in 18 fights he's only 2 knockouts. Because he hits hard. Obviously, he doesn't hit like an absolute truck, but he looks like he hits hard in fights. A lot of the time, though, when he hits a guy, he just kind of stuns him and takes him down. So maybe there isn't a necessity to actually go in there against someone and just fight with him on the feet or just knock him out or whatever. He's willing to show his well-roundedness, and that's smart and that's good, I think. The one issue, I think, here is maybe Ottani's size. He's a big boy. He is a big boy going in there against Pereira, who was a big 185er and is a 205er now. He looked to me bigger and stronger than him in that fight. Now, as I said, a good while ago at this stage, but still, the size remains. This fight, if I'm not mistaken, is at welterweight. So, getting down to that weight, and I think he's done it recently, but he fought a lot at 185, and getting down to that weight, he's going to have an advantage if he can get down there healthily. If he can't, maybe not, but I think it's a very interesting fight. My pick is the Lazy King. I just think he's too good. I think he's a better striker, a better grappler, a better athlete, even though Ottani is very, very good in my opinion. But yeah, that's my call on that one, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing the Lazy King and seeing him maybe rising in levels of opponent as well, and seeing him getting a few names in there. I'm really looking forward to seeing that and seeing how that plays out, I suppose. One of the other fights we should take a look at here is 205. Let's talk about the 205 tournament. First of all, Anthony Salamone against Jakob Nedoh. Salamone is, again, a very athletic fighter, powerful, good takedowns, vicious ground and pound. I remember talking about him the last time he fought and talking about how he loves side control, which is an unusual enough position these days for people to like. It's usually the half guard. People try to get because they can control from there. But I've known Salamone for a good while. He fought Will Fleury from Ireland back in 2022, and looking at the preparation for that fight, I was like, whoa, this guy is a legit fighter. And he lost to Will Fleury, but he won his fight after that, obviously, to get to this position, and he was undefeated before that. So 8-1 in his career. Now he's a kind of, I would say, like a classic clinch power takedown fighter. And look, when you fight someone like Will Fleury, I remember saying before, like, that's going to be an issue. But against Jakob in Nedoh, maybe that won't be an issue. He is a very aggressive fighter, almost head down and throws. And if you're a wrestler wanting to push someone against the cage and take them down, maybe that's a good thing. But he likes to clinch as well. He rushes people into the clinch because of that style. Who's going to win that clinch battle? I think that could be massive in this fight. I really do think it could be absolutely huge in this fight. He has lovely knees in that clinch. He has takedowns as well. Aggressive again on the floor. Very, very good. Good jab when he takes his time with it. But I think this is an evenly enough matched fight. And I really do think that clinch battle, like, who can get the fight to the floor? And if someone can win that battle, I think they'll win the fight. I really do think that's the win and losing in the fight. But having said that, maybe that battle won't be won by either of them. And maybe we'll turn this into maybe more of a kickboxing match. I'm not sure who wins that. Like, I think Er-Ramy and Nedoh will have the better of it. I think his jab will help him throughout the fight, but I think Salamone's power might be a big part of that too. Really hard one to call. I'm going to go for Salamone. I just think he may have a little bit of a higher ceiling. He's a little bit more in the tank, or a little bit more experience. He's fought a little bit better guys, and maybe that will help him through there in this one. The other light heavyweight tournament fight is Simeon Powell against Abdel Er-Ramy. Er-Ramy even. And Er-Ramy, watching him, I'll tell you what, it's fun to watch this guy. He's a big man with big strikes, high kicks, fast, wild man. Not the best takedown defense in the world now, mind, but God almighty, can this lad fight. Again, like you some guys you watch them and you're like, oh well, what am I picking out here? Well, or maybe a bit hard to analyze what really makes them good, what really got them to this level. Not this guy. Not this guy. You know exactly what got him to this level, and it's his, again, a bit of a freak athlete in terms of a guy who's that big. He's not the tallest in the world now. What is he, 6 foot? But he's, well built, and he throws these big high kicks, and they land, and they're dangerous. And I'll tell you what, he's a danger for anyone. He's a real danger for anyone. The problem here, though, he's fighting Simeon Powell, who is one of the best prospects in the world, definitely at 205 pounds anyway. Great outside striker with good pressure, long reach, good footwork, good takedown defense, but everyone's going to try to take him down now. I don't think Er-Ramy will, but everyone else does. He struggles a little bit with body locks. But again, a guy who's only young in his career and improving, and I don't think he'll be a major factor here. He's lovely body kicks, great cardio, even after the takedown attempts. And I've said this before about him, but I'll say it again. I think it's worth repeating. His best trait is his self-belief. I really do think I think he believes in himself an awful lot. We saw, was it the last fight? He got a few takedowns in as well, so he's willing to change things up. He's willing to take the fight to the ground, and I think that would probably be the smart play here. He got a submission in his last fight. It was the third submission in his career. But the other two were very early in his first 3 fights. I think this fight could be a little bit of a rinse and repeat of the last fight. Take him down, beat him on the ground and dominate there. I think that's probably the wise move. And I think it's probably what he'll do. But God almighty, I hope he doesn't for a while. I would love to see this fight play out on the feet for a while. I think it'd be really, really fun. And selfishly, very, very selfishly, I kind of hope that's what what happens here in this one. Right, let's move on and let's talk about the 125-pound women's bracket. Let's talk about Eeckhout versus Valentina Scatizzi first of all. I suppose if you look at Scatizzi, she's only 2-1 in her career. Fighting out of SBG, and I said it at the start, but everyone in SBG raves about her. Said she works really hard. Obviously, her brother Daniele Scatizzi is fighting in Bellator, and he's a very, very good fighter as well. She won her first fight and she looked good. It was a split decision, a close fight. And Eeckhout also obviously won her last fight, and got the unanimous decision in that one. She doesn't fight all that much. She's a bit undersized, I think, for the division. She's a good jab and a good 1-2, but maybe not the best takedown defense, maybe not the best on the ground. And I think that could be a problem against Scatizzi, because she has good wrestling. She is good on top. Like Eeckhout, if she gets on top herself, she's not bad and she has good ground and pound. But I think that's the real key here. I think on the feet, I'd be interested to see how it plays out on the feet. Scatizzi doesn't have that much tape on her. A lot of it is, I suppose, on the ground. And we'll see how it plays out on the feet. But on the ground, I do think if she can get on top and she can control Griet, I'd really think that is her best way to victory. For Griet, you would think, again, like if she can get on top, she's very good there. But you would think she would maybe want to strike. In this fight, she would maybe want to take it a little bit longer as well. When you're only 3 fights into your career, to maybe test that metal a little bit. When someone's only 3 fights into their career, it's very hard to predict how they're going to fight. It's very hard to predict how the fight is going to go. I think Scatizzi, again, I'm talking a lot about athleticism here, but I think she's a good athlete, and I think that might see her through in this one. I don't think there's any mistake in though the A fight here in the 125-pound division, or the A fighter even, that's Dakota Ditcheva against Cornelia Connie Future Holm. It's one of those fights where you think it's a little bit of a test for Dakota Ditcheva, although maybe not massive. Holm is a southpaw. She's good in the clinch, and she does try to get it there often. She's good knees, a good athlete again, which is a lot of the time someone like Ditcheva doesn't meet early in her career. Now she has actually in the amateurs fighting Shauna Bannon, so that's a very good betting for where she is now. Holm, not the greatest striker. She just wants to get on the inside. She just wants to get the fight to the ground, which again is a good test for Ditcheva. But honestly, I think she's had bigger tests early in her career as an amateur, maybe not necessarily as a pro. But look, Ditcheva she has it all. She's tall, rangy, switch stance fighter, long kicks, accurate strikes. She's getting better as well. I think the combinations are coming on an awful lot. Very good in the clinch. I think she was training in ATT as well. Just nasty on the ground. Great takedown defense of her own. She's just a level above people. Good cardio too. Good power. And on my notes here, I don't often write this, but no known weaknesses. And I think that's how the fight will go. I think this has destruction written all over it, and I would be very surprised if we don't see Dakota Ditcheva in the finale here. And the fight I'm most looking forward to on this card in the bantamweight division, I think the bantamweight card is fantastic. The 2 bantamweight fights, Frans Mlambo against Francesco Nuzzi, and then Khurshed Kakhorov against Ali Taleb. You could argue maybe that they're the 4 best people in PFL Europe. You really could. They are insanely good, insanely talented. Let's talk about Taleb versus Kakhorov first, I suppose. Taleb, hard to wax lyrical enough about him. I gave him the big build-up coming into his last fight, and it was just a destructive win, really. He's trained by Akira Kurosani, a good switch stance fighter, loads of fakes and feints, good straight right down the middle, hits like a truck, good movement, good jab, great cardio, great chin. And, you look at guys and you look at their ability and look how good they are, but then you look and see sometimes like, how tough is this guy to fight? How tough is this guy to beat? And he is a tough guy to beat. A very tough guy. Now, Kakhorov is no joke either, though. He fights at a very even pace, where he kind of pops in, lands his good 1-2s. He's a technical fighter. Sometimes he gets excited and sometimes he rushes in. He's more of a striker, but he's a good wrestler as well. And honestly, like, I'm finding it very hard. I know I have to sit here and I have to pick someone. I'm finding it very hard to pick a winner of this one. I'm going to pick Ali Taleb because I believe his level at the very top is massive. Now, Kakhorov's fighting out of Extreme Couture. He's a very good gym. That gym is on the up and up all the time now. And I wonder what difference that will make. I'm sure it'll make a positive one. He's been in there against some guys, good guys as well. He's in there with Brett Johns over in Bellator, and he's been, signed up to fight some very good guys. They haven't always happened, but I just think Taleb's his all-around ability is something that is, it's hard to look past, really. It's very, very hard to look past. I think when you see him, Ryan, you look at maybe his size, 5'7", but he's 8 out of 9 finishes, 5 knockouts. Now, Kakhorov is 5'8", not much bigger. Okay, they're 135ers, 135ers, sorry. And he's, a finisher as well. He's 7 finishes out of 10 wins. I know there isn't much of a difference there, but I think the way Taleb does it, the way he looks, the aggressiveness of him, the ability to keep that aggressiveness, I think he's a real find as an MMA fighter, and I think he'll get the win here. And then the other one, Frans Mlambo against Francesco Nuzzi. I interviewed Frans. If you haven't seen that, please check it out. Not many people have watched it yet. It's a good interview. Frans is a real good guy and a real good interview as well. So check that out, please, if you haven't seen it. This, again, barn burner written all over it. Nuzzi's a southpaw, fast and accurate, moves his feet a lot, power, counter striker, very good fighter. Doesn't have the best takedown defense maybe, but I don't think that's going to be a trouble here. Again, goes for submissions and sweeps on the bottom when he does get taken down, throws a bit of capoeira. Whereas Frans on the other side of it, I talked to him about, he's obviously, been around a long time, but, he's probably well known or best known maybe even for sparring with Conor McGregor and being one of his toughest sparring partners. And he even mimicked Floyd Mayweather. We talked about it in the interview when Conor was fighting him. And like, Frans is probably the most under the radar, underrated fighter in Ireland ever, I would say. He has been in there with some really good guys. He's been in there, look, just let me read out some of the names he's been in there with. He's been there with Ricky Bandejas, who's been very good for years. Dominic Wooding, champion in Cage Warriors. Stephen Lohman. I was only doing the preview for the One Championship card coming up this week. He's been in there twice with him, in fact. He's been in there with Darren O'Gorman, who's a very good up-and-coming Irish guy. He fought, 3 times in the one night over in Combaches, won them all. Fought Corey Tate and more. Nathan Grayson. He's been in Aidan James. Been in there with some really, really, really good guys and beaten almost all of them. 14-5 in his career. I'm telling you, this is the time for Frans. He's 32 now. This is his big opportunity and he needs to go out there and he needs to win this fight. Been off for a good while before his last fight. Clipped his opponent, almost knocked him out. Came up into a bit of trouble after that, but still in all, this is a great fight. Like, Frans is a really good striker, a fantastic boxer. Like, sometimes he goes for that old guillotine when people try to take him down. He jumps on it, whereas he should be like pushing people off, getting to the striker room. Because I'll tell you what, there hasn't, apart from Bandejas catching him once, no one has been beating him as a striker in the last long while. Like, Frans has won, 9 of his last 10 fights, only losing to Bandejas in a fight he was winning. That is an incredible record. Incredible. So I'm massively looking forward to that one. The other side of it then, obviously that was the 125ers. Then we have the 155ers. We've 2 Irish guys in this, not fighting each other, but maybe they will be in the in the finale. We have Dylan Tuke, who's fighting Jakob Kazupska. And we have Alexander Chivers against Ireland's John Mitchell. First of all, to Tuke, very impressed with his last fight against Conor Hughes. He'd been off for a while as well. Until last year, he came back out of 4 years off. He looked good in his first fight. He got beaten in his second fight. And a lot of people, I think, were writing him off at that stage, if I'll be honest. But he bounced back, stuck to the process. He's over in Scotland now, and he looked brilliant against Conor Hughes. His wrestling was absolutely fantastic. And his opponent, Kuban, his nickname, he's unbeaten, 9-0. Watched a bit of him. There isn't a load of tape out there on him. But do you know what I think with him? He's a kind of he's a very relaxed fighter, and he has six finishes in 9 fights. And he's one of these guys that kind of the finish comes to him rather than he going looking for it, and that's a dangerous guy to be in there with. So I think for Tuke, do exactly what you did in the last fight. There's no need to change things up. No need to adjust your game. Do what you did the last time out. Take him down. Use your high-level ability on the ground and win the fight that way. And if you're Cuba, you should be trying to do the opposite. Either take him down and get on top, or keep the fight on the feet and test the chin. Fascinating fight. I think the John Mitchell versus Chivas fight is equally fascinating. Chivas, power striker, lovely left hook to the body. Again, takedown defense not amazing, but improving. He gets on top and he lands shots. He loves to fight in the pocket until his opponent goes back. Then he kind of cuts off the cage and he's controlled pressure. Lovely combination fighter. Again, this could be one where I think John Mitchell might be looking for the takedown. We've seen a few of his fights where he got caught once and he got caught in a submission. But he's been wrestling better recently. He can, his big shots as well. I remember watching was it the last fight where I saw a few people talking about it afterwards, and like John Mitchell is kind of cutting people into believing he's a wrestler now, when he can strike very, very well. So it's interesting to see what he does here. Will he back the striking against Chivas or try to get the takedown? I would say a bit of both. I think he should definitely try in a few takedowns against Chivas and see how that works out. It's a tough one to pick again. Like I think I think I do favour Frans against Nuzzi. I think it's a toss of a kind, the Mitchell fight against Chivas. I probably just lean towards Mitchell because of the wrestling. And honestly, with the Tuke fight, I'm not sure. I haven't seen enough of his opponent to make like a guaranteed call on that, as I would say. But I think they're two very interesting, two fascinating fights. And those are all the matchups in the tournaments. The last fight, I think the only fight we haven't touched on is Lizzie Jeevers against Chanel Dyer. Again, Chanel Dyer came in, made her MMA debut in 2023, but the level of opponent she's had as an amateur is very, very strong. Shauna Bannon, again, I mentioned her earlier, she fought Sinead Newland, who's a very good Irish amateur as well, and Manny Moore has 10, 11, 12 amateur fights. Very, very good record. Jeevers is 3-1. She lost her last fight, obviously, to Scatizzi, but was undefeated before that. I think Dyer will be able to get through this, and I think she will win it. It's kind of a showcase fight, I suppose, for what's coming next, and I'm looking forward to seeing that one. Maybe we could see her towards the end of the year as well in the on the Dublin card. But that's interesting, the fact that they have Chanel Dyer now, and the fact that they're giving her one of those showcase fights. So I think I touched on everything there. Just maybe to recap, I'll give you my picks recap because I know people like that. I'm going with Doumbe. I'm going with the Lazy King. I picked Salamone at a push. I'm definitely going to go with Powell and Ditcheva, obviously. The one fight I didn't mention, Luigi Van-Der-Remy. I'm going to pick him against Yaiz Khurshed. Van-Der-Remy, another about 9-3, but he's been around a good while. He's a very, very good fighter. So I'm going to pick him in that one. I'm going to go with Frans Mlambo. I'll pick Kazuba in that one. Although I'm not too sure. I'm going to go with John Mitchell for the wrestling. I'll go with Taleb. I think Scatizzi's wrestling is well my winner there, and I think Chanel Dyer will win in the opening bout of the night. All right, everyone. Let me know your picks in the comments section below. Look forward to the card. Look forward to seeing it. And until then, please click the like button. Please click the subscribe button. My name is Sean Sheehan for SureDog.com, and I'll see you all next time.